Hey, welcome. And today, in this little video webinar, we're going to go over basically it's the business model canvas, what I'm calling here the business blueprint. It is how do the different concepts related to a business model, all the things that have to come together on the outward facing side, marketing, customers, sales, and then on the inward facing side, the operations of the business and things, and how they all integrate together. So let's get down to it. Here is our slide deck. And yeah, so this is your business blueprint. And we're going to talk about Airbnb, the origin story of Airbnb and how that started out small and then, scaled up into a monster business. So that's really important to us. We're talking about, starting out small, niching down, finding your customers, and then moving on. So here it is. Believe it or not, I mean, it's amazing. Airbnb started as a 3 air mattresses. Art school graduate, 23 years old, couldn't afford rent in San Francisco. Solution bought 3 air mattresses and charged conference visitors. There was a conference coming up, $80 a night to sleep on it, and breakfast included. So that's the B and B part, bed and breakfast, and air mattress, Airbnb. That's where the name came from. Um, what they had, again, it's the problem. Travelers couldn't afford, find affordable rooms in San Francisco, and they had a customer, these conference attendees, what they wanted, and they had a delivery method. Their apartment was the delivery method and a way to make money, $80 a night, right? I mean, very, very simple, clear, straightforward, easy to understand. The value proposition was easy for the customers to understand. So no app, no website, no business plan, just that, just a rough business model that worked. And then they could scale up for that. Now, Airbnb is valued at $75 billion with a B. I mean, just amazing. So every business that has ever existed answers 3 questions, right? You have to create value, you have to deliver it, and you have to get paid. That's basically a business. So now that we understand what a business is, it's not rocket surgery, right? So what is a business model? Well, a business model is the logic of how your business creates value, delivers it to the customers, and makes money. It answers those 3 questions, right? So creating value, what is that all about? That is, building a product or service that solves a real problem for a real customer. The better you understand their jobs and pains and gains, the more valuable your solution. A lemonade stand has a business model. So does Netflix, right? The scale is different, but the logic is the same. So you have to first create value, then you deliver it. How do you get your value into the hands of people who need it? That's your channels, your reach, your delivery method, distribution. All that's part of the model. And then how do you get paid? How do you capture enough of that value as revenue to cover your costs and generate a profit so you can make your business sustainable? That's it. No money in, there's no business. It's simple, but sometimes we get a little fuzzy on that. Um, so let's see. Your business model, the blueprint has 6 elements, right? The first is the value proposition. What do you offer, and why should anybody care? And you have to make that very clear. You have to make your value proposition very clear and compelling. Customer segments. Who are you building it for? Who is your product or service for? And then channels. How does your value reach the customer? What are your distribution channels? And then the key activities that you have. What must your business do every day to work? What are the things you do? And revenue streams. It's nice to have multiple revenue streams. How does your business make money? You want to have not one big customer. You want to have lots of customers, and you want to have several different revenue streams so that you have robustness. If one starts to fail, you got other ones and stuff. It's sort of a diversification. And then your cost structure. You got to know how much, and obviously you have to be selling your product for more than it costs you to make. So you really have to know your cost structure. And on the cost side, there's fixed costs and there's variable costs, right? There's the cost of each individual unit or sale, and then there's the cost that you have no matter what. Um, like in a pizza shop, the variable costs will be the dough and the sauce and what it takes to make a pizza, and the fixed costs would be the pizza ovens and things like that, things that you need no matter what, and you have to have enough of a profit that covers your variable costs and has some contribution to start covering your fixed costs, and then you move towards breaking even, where your costs cover you know, your your revenues cover your costs, and then you start to make a profit. So what does it cost to run your business? Absolutely a key fact. Um, and now we're going to talk about value, customers, and channels, right? So the first three elements are, the value proposition. It's not a product description. It's a promise. I'm selling a tutoring app as a description. I help middle schoolers catch up in math. That is a promise. That's the value proposition. Remember what we talked about? The description would be a quarter-inch drill bit. The value proposition would be make quarter-inch holes, deliver quarter-inch holes. That's like the key. So you start with, Sam, I help whatever the customer is, do whatever the job is, buy whatever your solution is. Um, I help people make, quarter-inch holes by delivering quarter-inch drill bits. That's the kind of thing. And customer segments, you segment your customers into different, what their different needs are and all. Your customer is your profile is your primary segment, and we did that in the last one, make your customer profile. So you need a different strategy for each different type of customer. And you don't want to serve too many customers at once. You want to serve specific customer segments and serve them very, very well. That's what you want to do. And then three is the channels. That's the path. How does it get from you to your customers? Your product or service. How do you deliver it? You could deliver it over the internet. You could deliver it in the mail. Deliver it on a truck. But you have to know what your channels are. And you need to know where your customers already spend their time, right? Because that's where you want to deliver to them. So let's go on to the last, 4 through 6. So in these, the key activities, what must happen every day? What are the essential tasks that you do? And if you stop doing them, the business stops working, And revenue streams, how does the money come in? You have to be specific about when they're going to pay, how much, and how often. Is it direct sales? Is it a subscription model where they pay monthly or something? Service fees. Freemium is where you do it for free, and then you have paywalls after that. For more and more different, for higher, value things that you offer. And then what your cost structure is. The fixed costs we talked about, and the variable costs. The fixed costs are, the same regardless of sales, and the variable costs change with volume. So if your costs exceed revenue, you don't have a business, right? You have to have revenues that are more than your cost, and start with as low as cost as possible. Start with basically as low fixed costs as possible. And, the lower your costs, obviously, the more room you have to have a profit margin. Companies like Apple and stuff, they have profit margins. I mean, basically their costs are less than their revenues. They make profit margins of 50, 60%. I mean, amazing, profit margins. So they're making a lot of money. So here we go. And the next one is 5 ways to make money, right? These are different ways that you're going to get the revenues in, because no sales, no business. So direct sales, you're going to actually, customer pays once for the service or product. It's sort of like you go to the delicatessen, right? You order a sandwich, they give you the sandwich, you give them the money. That's basically it. Subscriptions, they pay regularly on for ongoing access, and that is a nice model because you're getting, payment over time. And that's a nice revenue stream instead of each customer you have to get and market to them, and then they pay once. A subscription model is very good, but subscription model is difficult to do too. But it's a great way to have a consistent revenue stream. Think of, what is Amazon Prime, right? We pay $200, a year, whatever it is, for that service, and then you get free delivery and all this stuff. It's a great service. You get access to their, all their shows on Prime, their TV shows and all. Um, and that's a great model for them because they have, millions of customers paying that $200, a year. That's a wonderful model for them. Costco is another one where you pay each year to go to have the privilege of shopping there. That subscription base is really a great revenue stream. Service fees, you charge for time for your expertise. That kind of model is good, but it doesn't scale. It's actually tied to your trading your time for money. So that's a challenging one to make into a big business. You want something. What we all want kind of is something that is making money while we sleep. Maybe digital downloads. People go, they buy it, they hit the paywall, and paywall might be Stripe or something. Then the Stripe payment just goes right into your bank account instead of like charging people $25 an hour for your tutoring service or something. Freemium, the basic version is free. So you get the customers in, they start to like your product, they start to feel comfortable with it. And then you have a premium subscription that costs money. And so that's a great way. Spotify has a free tier, and, you have ads that way, or Google has, uh, YouTube has ads. And then if you want to go to the premium, get rid of the ads, you have to pay. That's a freemium model. And a commission structure is where you take a commission for, you take a percentage of the sales. Airbnb, the matching engines are that. They're like a subscription commission service or Uber or something where you're matching, a rider with a car, and then you take a percentage of that sale. eBay does it that way, right? You have a buyer and a seller, and they make a transaction, and eBay takes a little bit. So commission is a good way too, especially if you're doing it with high volume. It's a great way. So those are 5 ways to make money. So here is the blueprint in action. The phone case business we talked about. A 14-year-old with design skills, and this is what the completed blueprint would look like. Again, this will be below here, so you can download this and look at it in more detail and things like that and understand it. But the value proposition: personalized phone cases designed to match your style, made to order in 3 days. That's very quick turnaround. That's key. Channels: Instagram for marketing and orders, and that's a great way to get people in. School, you can do it through word of mouth, direct delivery. You can actually hand it to people. But Instagram and mailing the case would probably be a good way, using some social media, TikTok. Revenue streams: direct sales. The cost, the cases cost $25. You pay up front, via Venmo or cash. Venmo's better, right? They send you the money, you make them the case. It could be Stripe, but Venmo's a great way to do it. And customer segments: who is it? In this case, teenagers at the local schools that want to stand out and express their personality through their phone case. It's a fun thing to do, right? Key activities: you got to design the cases, placing the orders with the manufacturer, delivering and managing the Instagram account. Those are the key activities for this. And the cost structure, is manufacturing is $8 a case. The software is $10 a month to design it. So the gross profit is $17 a case. So there you have how that works. I went one too far here. So your blueprint also, remember, is a living document. You don't do it once. It's always being modified, and you're polishing it and you're trying to make things better. It's not a finished plan. It's a set of current assumptions, and you're going to, some will be right, some will be wrong, and you're going to work to find out which are right and double down on those, and which are wrong, and course correct and refine until you find stuff that really works. So you find your question marks, right? So every assumption you have, tag it with a question mark. So it's not a fact, it's an assumption, and you're going to test that assumption. So you're not writing a business plan, you're designing a business. So you're not going to spend a whole bunch of time writing a plan. And this kind of thinking, when you think in these 6 segments, then you can start to quickly assess whether something is a good business opportunity or not. You can really, and you can look at any business and think about, oh, wow, that's how that business operates. If you're going to be investing in companies on the stock market, this is a quick way to do an analysis of those companies too. So you can do all those kind of things. Um, it's really a great tool. So here we are. This is the last slide of this presentation. And here's the key terms we talked about: a business model, how a business creates value, delivers it, and makes money. It's the logic of business. The blueprint, it's just this one-page map of those six essential elements. The value proposition is a clear statement of the benefit and a clear statement of the benefit you deliver. Revenue streams, how you get paid. Fixed costs, how much it costs for you to, the costs that are the same regardless of how much you sell, and the variable costs are the costs of each individual unit, the costs that change based on how much you sell. So draw up your business blueprint. This is the try it section. Use a single page, go through those six things, and make an assumption for each one of those. Write your best guess for anything you don't know, and there we have it. So um, we will now move on to the next one. And the next one is going to be building something real, which is really what we want to do. So I'll catch you in the next one. And until then, stay busy and enjoy. Catch you later.